Hopefully yesterday we put a little overconfident Jackrabbit country on a notice, but today we definitely take notice of the fact that SDSU has more than enough dudes to make this a difficult game worthy of all national views.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at All Day O State. Today, we're partially brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. It fixes tired fast with zero sugar. It is a convenient, portable size drink that gives you the instant pick-me-up you need. Go to 5hourenergy.com. Make sure you use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid through September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions, but make sure you go to 5hourenergy.com to get started today. Meanwhile, we get started in the conversation of the South Dakota State University Jackrabbits coming to Stillwater, Oklahoma. Again, I think it's commendable, admirable, respectable that they feel so confidently in their abilities. They should. They do have a winning way. They haven't lost a game in over 2 years. But if you go back to the last time they faced somebody like Ollie Gordon, you do have to go back to 06, 07. That's not even taking into consideration what Sesi Vealahi or Trent Howland bring to the fold. But nonetheless, they do have more than enough dudes to make this an interesting, not going to be a walk in the park by any stretch of the imagination. I do think they're as good as South Alabama, but I don't think that we're going to deal with the South Alabama situation because the locker room is entirely different between this season and last season. Last season, at this time, we had maybe 2 leaders that were trying to guide a young group to some degree. Now we have the exact opposite. We have what SDSU had last year, which is 55, 57, whatever, upperclassmen that are all going to be leaving or graduating or moving on. Oklahoma State's in that position this year. South Dakota State was in that position last year, which is why they brought in 36 new players, including 31 of them being freshmen. So if you're talking about depth and relying on 31 freshmen or 36 new guys to walk into Stillwater, Oklahoma and have a wonderful day, I just don't see it happening. But another thing that I want to pay attention to is some of the matchups. One of the biggest individuals that they've talked about more often than not this season, who's also on the Remington Award watch list, is their center. 6'3", 295-pound Gus Miller. He's a bad mamma jamma. I get that, or else he wouldn't be on the Remington Award watch list. But he's not going to be able to shut down Justin Kirkland. 6'4", 350 pounds. The dude that can bench a house and move a mountain is the guy that is unfortunately going to be lined up directly across from their center. And even if you wanted to go to a 4-down look, if you wanted to talk about Colin Clay, 6'3", 230 pounds, I don't think that they're going to have an easy time with him either. They had discussed on their Jackrabbit Illustrated that this is a big moment for Gus Miller. If he's going to put on some NFL film for the scouts and the executives, who better to do it than against Justin Kirkland, who is 6'4", 350, who is a member of Power 4 football, who is a member of the top 20 ball club, who's a member of a returning Big 12 title, playing team. Did we get it done? No, that is this year. So that's one of the biggest matchups I'm going to be paying attention to is their All-American Gus Miller against the new age Justin Kirkland and or Colin Clay. And if you wanted to get really feisty, I do think that even Aiden Kelly or Iman Oates would have a pretty good day against Gus Miller here. Another big matchup that we need to pay attention to is they love their tight ends. Again, this is a somewhat Iowa State-esque ball club when it comes to their offensive approach. But whenever you're talking about the approach offensively, it's going to be catered more towards the tight ends than anything. I do think Amir Johnson is a good back. I do think that they have a couple wide receivers that we need to pay attention to, but their tight ends are something that they're going to utilize quite often. And their offensive coordinator was an O-line coach and a tight end guy before getting elevated to the offensive coordinator role. Therefore, they're going to try to utilize them. The difference that I see it being is there's not very many Nick Martins and Colin Olivers and Kendall Daniels in the country. Not the Big 12, not the Big 10, not the SEC, in the United States of America. Again, this linebacker core was voted top 5 in the country by multiple publications before Kendall Daniels was thrown into this group. So again, If we talk about size, yes, we had a 6'4", 245-pound safety that was so big that we had to kind of move him to linebacker. But he does still play safety. He still will rotate back in the back end of the defense. So if you want to test it, feel free to do so. Another big matchup that I'm paying attention to is primarily DeJon Stribling versus their top corner, Dallas Beanham. But I think, again, you can go another layer here. How are they going to be able to stop Io Shotomide King? There's nobody whatsoever in the FCS that is likely 6'5", 220 pounds with a 39-inch vertical and a 10.7 broad jump. I don't see it happening. Therefore, I want to watch DeJon Stribling and Io Shotomide King against their top corners. Let's flip to the other side of the field. I like our corners, especially Corey Black, this season in this situation. They're very high on their wide receiver, Griffin Wilde, or as they call him at GFW, Griffin Flippin' Wilde. I actually dig it. I think it's a phenomenal nickname. I'm here for it, but I'm also here for Corey Black putting on the seatbelt and strapping that dude in for a very long day. If this isn't the biggest, I don't know what is, but their quarterback, Mark Gronowski, the Heisman winner for the FCS level, is one of the best in the game. He would start at several Division I schools, including some Big 12 schools. I'm with that. I get it. So I'm excited to see him versus, you ready? Father Time. Every quarterback has an internal clock. You know that typically within 3 to 4 seconds, if you don't get the ball out of your hand or make a decision, you're setting yourself up for failure. Oklahoma State is very well aware of this, and with our 3-3-5/4-2-5 that we're going to mix in here, I do not see Mark Gronowski being able to key off of a defensive end, a linebacker, or a safety. If you can't key, it's really hard to call audibles. If you can't call audibles, it's going to be really difficult to catch Oklahoma State in an opportune defense. Will it happen occasionally because he's that good? Yes. But by and large, I don't see him passing for a bunch of yards. So I'm less concerned about a specific matchup and more concerned about, is he going to have more than 3 seconds to distribute the football? I don't believe so. So that's going to be a matchup worth watching. And then the final one before we shift over here a little bit is this defense that everyone in the country, even Oklahoma State fans, are reluctant to give praise to. Very reluctant to say that it's anywhere near the 2021 squad. Cody might be crazy. It's very possible, but I don't think so. I think this is the best defense we have likely ever seen at Oklahoma State. Just people need to see it on the field. They have the talent to do so, and they have more depth than 2021. So it'll be exciting to see what Brian Nardo can do versus Ryan Olson. And Ryan Olson is an offensive line guy. Y'all remember the Wisconsin Whitewater and the Mount Union matchups and the D3 national titles almost every single year growing up? He was a part of those matchups. He was a tackle for Wisconsin Whitewater when they were winning back-to-back whatever national titles in Division III, including winning 45 games in a row. He just recently made the transition from offensive line to tight ends to now being an offensive coordinator. This 3-3-5 is something they feel like they can exploit. I'm excited to see them try to exploit it because as much as the statistics indicated last season that our back end could leak like a sieve, to me, that's just an invitation for anybody in the country who wants to get testy with our secondary, Corey Black in particular. Brian Nardo, what people seem to not remember is although we did give up bunches of yards for the first 3 quarters, Brian Nardo's defense won us several games in the fourth quarter, whether it be turnovers or fumbles or shifts or picks or sacks. Brian Nardo made adjustments in the fourth quarter that equaled W's. If he can carry that over this season, this 3-3-5 that everybody thinks is easily exploitable should have a very fine day. Now, some of the SDSU fan base did bring up that special teams is typically one of the biggest barometers for success whenever you have a matchup between an FBS and an FCS ball club. I don't necessarily disagree with them there, so we're going to hit on that. But before we do that, I have to remind the fine folks out here that 5 Hour Energy is the best pick-me-up in the game. Whether you're just trying to get through your day, you've got a bunch of chores that you got to get knocked out, or if you're like me and you do a lot of traveling and you go from state to state to state, and you just need a little bit extra here and there, 5 Hour Energy is your ticket. I'm about to hit the road to head to a baseball tournament in Kansas City, so I know I'm going to be stocking up on some 5-hour energy for my trips. If you are too, you're not alone. In fact, research shows that more than 70% of U.S. hits walls after lunch. They hit walls after driving long periods. Let 5-hour energy be the shot that helps you leap over that wall instead of crashing into it. Grab a 5-hour energy to check out the Cowboys throughout the course of this season. The Cardiac Cowboys will likely pop up at some point in time. So make sure that you get on the site and you get squared away today. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You can choose the flavors and it's delivered right to your door. The 5-Hour Energy website has flavors out the wazoo. You just pick them, pack them, turn them into what you need for your delivery, and they can make it happen, Captain. 5-Hour Energy is the best in the game for a reason. You need to go to 5-Hour Energy today. That's number 5. HourEnergy.com to get some 5-Hour Energy product in you as soon as possible. You can use a promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid through September 30th on one order and cannot be used for other promotions. The code is not good on certain subscription orders as well. Make sure you go to 5HourEnergy.com today to get squared away and add some excitement to your day if you're starting to wander off a little bit. Speaking of wandering off a little bit, I know special teams isn't the fun, sexy pick for people to have a conversation about, but Jackrabbit Illustrated did make a good point here that there's a decent amount of time when an FBS team, especially a top 20 FBS team, underestimates an FBS school. And traditionally speaking, sometimes it's not about the main 11 dudes against the other 11 dudes. Sometimes it's not even about depth because you don't get enough sustained drives that equal you bringing in depth or getting them tired enough for them to use their depth. But special teams always comes into play. And the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. Most every upset, regardless of whether it's the FBS or FCS distinction, special teams play is a big part. And if you look back as an Oklahoma State fan, one of the things that made us so competitive in the Les Miles days was the fact that he was a riverboat gambler that was willing to take risks. So you as a coordinator, whether it be a special teams coordinator or defense coordinator, you had to prepare a little bit extra for the fact that Oklahoma State might do a fake punt, might do a fake field goal, might do some triple reverse off of some special teams play. Well, we went years with just playing more fundamentally sound football and not doing the quote-unquote cutesy-tootsy stuff. But now we have Sean Snyder. So I pity the fool who thinks that they're going to be able to out-chess match Sean Snyder, who's one of the greatest special teams guys in the game. His dad, Sean Snyder, even was at Kansas State. And that's one of the things that made Kansas State so difficult to deal with if you go back to the Darren Sproles days, is their special teams. They were going to be aggressive. They were going to look to block kicks. They were going to look to do some fake stuff. They were going to have a lot of fun on returns. They were going to be willing to take a lot of chances. I don't think Oklahoma State's going to need to take an overabundance of chances here, but there will be opportunities for the Jackrabbits to find out where we sit on special teams. They may be under the assumption that because we've had to bring in 4 kickers to compete with Logan Ward, that may be a dire situation. And it very well may have been to some degree before Sean Snyder was brought on board. And this is partially why Sean Snyder was brought on board. The other factor is, of course, Hudson Kaak. Hudson Kaak athletically can do things that no other punter in the country can. We just haven't had the rest of the nation be able to see it yet. So I kind of secretly hope that one of the returners does go streaking down the field, because my money's on Hudson Kaak. Find me another punter out here that is 6'2", 220 pounds, and run a 4.5 40. Find it. And then also find one that played rugby. It was an all-American level dude in rugby that loves contact. He doesn't want somebody to break through, but I can promise you he will be licking his chops Pat McAfee style when that day does come. So I hope we get it out of the way now and people realize that you're not going to be able to run. Because if you do get past some of the defenders, then you have to deal with him. Because we knew Logan Ward had a big leg. We knew that Logan from 50 out was our guy. He was our guy from 50 out basically last season too. His difficulty is the closer you get, the more difficult it gets. Okay, so extra points could become problematic. Very well likely that if we not had hired Sean Snyder, that would be the case. We could be looking at a situation where we roll the dice a little bit more often on 2-point conversions as opposed to extra points. But this is the difference between the depth and the talent of South Dakota State and Oklahoma State. I'm not doubting that they have very good ball players. I'm definitely not doubting that they are the most fundamentally sound, well-coached team in the FCS. But we're just glossing over the fact that they lost everybody that has been a main part of the 2 national title runs, other than the quarterback. And then they have the backup running back, Amar Johnson, who I think is going to be very good. But they lost their defensive line. And they expect to go up against our offensive line that has 172 starts between the 5 guys, over 223 starts when you combine the rest of the guys. But they replaced pretty much their entire D-line. It's just, I don't see it. This is not a conversation of, oh, they're just an FCS school, so we're going to have an easy game. I don't think that at all. What I think is that we have way too much in the department of weaponry, including special teams. It is important. In any FCS school or any lower level school that has the opportunity to beat one of the top 25 teams in America, their special teams is going to have to do some things that is what? Special. My argument is our special teams is more special than theirs could ever be. Do they have Big 12 level linebackers? Yes. Do they have a Big 12 level quarterback? Yes. Do they likely have a Big 12 level wide receiver mixed in the bunch? Absolutely. But they don't have a plethora of these guys. Because after Blake Peterson on their defensive line, who's he going to go against? Dalton Cooper, the guy who allowed 0 sacks and 1,368 snaps? Sure, put your best player on our future NFL tackle. That's fine. My statement is still the same. A very good ball club that is very well coached is just not going to have enough for this Oklahoma State squad. If we were starting last season with this game, it would have been a loss. Guaranteed. Because again, we limped into the season and reverted back to some old school tendencies that we didn't necessarily even work on a whole lot during the spring, and it caused chaos. South Dakota State is not going to be a team that gets to benefit from the chaos going on at Oklahoma State. Last year was chaotic. The year before that was actually very chaotic as well. The ending of last season was proof that Mike Gundy turned the ship around. The fact that everybody decided to stay is even further proof that Mike Gundy's turned this thing around. This is a different animal. We are a different team, and this is a level of competition that you're not used to. So please keep doubting this Oklahoma State ball club, and please keep acting like special teams is somewhat even. It's not. Hudson Kaak is going to prove that. And we also have a big leg guy. So we need to bring in Westfall to boot a 70-yarder, 60-yarder. That's his role. Hudson Kaak can go both ways. He's ambidextrous. He can kick left. He can kick right. He can throw left. He can throw right. It's a completely different ball game. They had discussed how a couple years back they played Illinois, or a few years back, I don't know. And the biggest difference wasn't the 11 dudes versus the 11 dudes. It was on special teams. Their conversation was about the fact that Illinois' special teams unit was bigger than their starting defense. I understand they've gotten bigger. I understand you have 10 tight ends and 10 linebackers. You're going to need all of them. That's all I'm saying. And there's nobody on that team that is bigger, stronger, and faster than our punter, especially at a specialty position. Our punter would absolutely dominate at that level. Again, not being disrespectful to call a spade a spade. This is the deepest Oklahoma State team we've ever had. So you have 100+ years where, historically speaking, yes, this game could be problematic. South Dakota State just happened to fall on the most loaded, senior-laden Cowboy team of all time. I don't understand how that's controversial, nor do I understand why there's a decent number of Oklahoma State fans that have any trepidation about this game. I understand what the past is, but this is the new Cowboy team. This is the new Cowboy future. Being ahead of the Big 12 should be the objective. I think it is. It's going to be, and unfortunately, South Dakota State isn't going to be much of a road bump here. All right, we're not completely out of here. We got some picks to break down, and we also have to talk a little bit about, I don't know, some fun stuff, I guess you could call it. It's fun for somebody. Anywho, it's fun for you to make the money, honey, and FanDuel is likely the best thing out there for you to bring home the W and the dollar bills. You've heard me talk about FanDuel a lot because it's the number one sports book in America. And right now, they're doing something a little bit different. Through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, when you have the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel at any time. Make sure that you visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to download America's number one sportsbook. Get in on the betting action today. Additionally, we're talking about getting in on the money-making action. You might want to get in on some action that's going to be beneficial to you when you're trying to go out on the road and you've got a lot of things in life that cause you to be on the run, whether it be kids or work or just personal goals that you're trying to accomplish. Having the right meal planning is important. Fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet all of your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. With over 35 different meals to choose from and over 60 add-ons, it'll make every week pretty inspirational for your food palette. Make sure that you head on over to factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 and use the code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month. That code is LockedOnCollege50, all one word, at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50. Go there to get the 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month while your subscription is being activated. All right, speaking of being activated, we get to be activated today to talk about the Big 12. And of course, our Cowboys get to take the field Saturday, maybe not the most opportune time to have a game, but nonetheless, it is what it is. Got to take care of business. But there's also several Big 12 teams that need to take care of business as well as we look at the slate this weekend. Now, Utah, I don't think they're going to have any problems, right? I think this is going to be a fairly simplistic game for them. But nonetheless, they do still have to get past the Warhawks. The Southern Utah Warhawks. Or something Hawks. Dagnabbit, did I say it wrong? I may have. The Thunderbirds. Warhawks, Thunderbirds. My apologies. I just disrespected you. So hopefully Utah just takes care of business so I don't have to turn around and have some of that wonderful crow. We also have to talk about Rock Talk. Jayhawk taking care of a Lindenwood. Shouldn't be much of an issue. Should be a fairly simplistic game and a somewhat simplistic W. UCF takes on New Hampshire. Another opportunity for UCF to showcase the team that was pretty good last season, but just not consistent. I'm not a big believer in KJ Jefferson. This would be a good time for him to start to prove me wrong. Then we do have to talk about Colorado at North Dakota State. This is yet another one of those times where it's an FCS opponent that definitely should not be underestimated. But I also view this from the lens of the talent level that they're going to be going up against. Colorado, I do not think has a lot of depth, right? But I do think they have a lot of talent. Therefore, I think they find a way to get it done, but it's not going to be an easy task. Then we have TCU versus Stanford. Locked On College Football. Spencer, he picked TCU, but he only picked TCU by 7. I find that slightly disrespectful because Stanford is trash. So TCU by a mile. Then you've got Oklahoma State, South Dakota State. You already know my opinion there, 41-21. Cincinnati, Towson. Cincinnati, of course, get the W. Iowa State, North Dakota. Since we're picking on the Dakota schools today, give me the Iowa State Cyclones. UT Martin versus Kansas State. Of course, the Purple Power Kitties get it done here. Tarleton State versus Baylor. I'm not a big believer in Baylor. I feel bad for Coach Dave Aranda. I feel bad for their team because their fan base is so atrocious. So although Tarleton State might make it fun, and I kind of hope they do just for S's and giggles, Baylor gets it done. Houston UNLV. This is actually going to be a very good ball game. This is a good Odom-led ball club from UNLV that took over from Marcus Arroyo. He had a lot of talent, and he was able to showcase that in the previous season. They did get beat by KU in the bowl game, but as they proved in that bowl game, they can put up points. They can play ball. They are bringing in a new quarterback, and for that reason alone, I do have Houston. If it was the same quarterback, same everything, same system from last season, might be a different tune. But I got the Houston Cougs in this one. Abilene Christian and Texas Tech Red Raiders. Red Raiders going to carry. Southern Illinois Salukis, pretty good in basketball, not so much in football. So I have BYU over the Salukis. New Mexico versus Arizona. Arizona gets to begin their Big 12 slate against a decent ball club. Not decent enough to beat the Wildcats. Give me Arizona. And then Wyoming, Arizona State. Guys, I really want to jump on this Big 12's undefeated train. But if there's going to be a loss from a Big 12 school over the weekend, I kind of feel like it's going to be that one. I have a gut feeling that Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham, really cool coach. I like the idea of them building kind of a Gundy style tree. And I think they have had some talent, but they get hit by the portal harder than almost anybody in the conference, which is kind of crappy for them. They're not going to be able to be good if they can't hang on to their players. But again, that's another reason we should all be thankful here in Oklahoma State country, because our roster retention was phenomenal. Staff retention is even better. And this is the new age NIL era, transfer market era version of Mike Gundy that South Dakota State is not going to be ready for. So that's all we're going to have for this one.